recently celebrated the 50th anniversary of the October Great Victory that took place 50 years ago and right now. And nowadays, under the tenure of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, we have another battle, an important battle for development and prosperity for Egypt in general, and more specifically, as we will be going to be shedding more light on during the episode for today, for the Sinai Peninsula. We will be having more details regarding the efforts of the new republic of having new mega national projects in Sinai in the upcoming report. So stay tuned.
Development boosts hope and prosperity in Sinai and Canal cities. More than 700 billion Egyptian pounds of investments were and are being implemented to develop the Sinai Peninsula in 9 years. Development of investment and industrial infrastructure to attract and encourage investors in Sinai and Canal cities. The Egyptian state has set the Sinai Peninsula on the path of real development since its launch. It has launched a comprehensive plan for the development of the land. It has launched major and unprecedented national projects covering various sectors, linking the Eastern Egypt portal to the Delta by making the canal cities a natural extension of the Nile Valley and overcoming all obstacles in order to attract investment opportunities. In addition to the interest in service sectors such as education, health and agriculture, as well as the focus on providing all forms of support and social protection to Sinai people. This contributed to a paradigm shift that changed the face of life in Sinai and transforming it into a promising attraction and environment conducive to investment and reconstruction in a state of security and stability, which has also led international institutions to commend Sinai's continued development efforts at various levels. The state efforts are directed to develop investment and industrial infrastructure to attract and encourage investors in Sinai and Canal cities. 3 centers were inaugurated to serve investors at a cost of 206.4 million Egyptian pounds, in addition to more than 8,800 companies, as well as the launching of 8 industrial projects and zones within the industrial investment map, as well as Sinai and the Canal cities have 275 investment opportunities on the investment map. With regard to the new Suez Canal, the total length of the project is 72 kilometers, 24 meters deep, while the direct transit time of ships is 10 to 11 hours non-stop instead of the previous 18 hours, and the capacity of the canal reaches 97 vessels per day, compared to about 77 vessels per day before the opening of the new canal. The Suez Canal Economic Zone comprises 250 industrial and service establishments in various fields. The total cost of infrastructure and investments within the region amounts to about $18 million, while projects implemented in the area provided 100,000 direct jobs. The most important industrial projects, including the Small Industries Complex in South Raswa Port Said Governorate, which encompasses 118 units and costs 403 million Egyptian pounds. On medium, small and micro enterprises in Sinai and the Canal cities, the report showed that 42.5 thousand projects were funded by the Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency at a cost of about 1.8 million Egyptian pounds until February 2022. 5,428 projects were funded by the National Project for Community, Human and Local Developments, new project or Mashruak, at a cost of 749 million Egyptian pounds, providing 38.4 thousand job opportunities until the end of February 2022, as well as approving the funding of 788 projects from the Local Development Fund. Concerning agricultural development in Sinai and the Canal cities, the most important Agricultural projects included Sinai development projects, where the total area is 1.1 million fadans, of which 239,000 fadans were cultivated until the end of March 2022. A total of 18 agricultural clusters were established with a total of 2,122 beneficiaries.
Welcome back. You're still watching the Daily Debate, and I am honored to be having with me in the studio for tonight Dr. Ahmed Laithi, Nasef, the economics and the management consultant. Thank you very much for being with us tonight on the Daily Debate.
You're most welcome.
Anytime. Doctor, of course, we have just recently celebrated the 50th anniversary of the 1973 October War victory against Israel. How do you see the importance of the battle of development nowadays in the country in general, for Egypt and more specifically for Sinai?
Well, it's a very emotional occasion, so I'll try to be scientific, and that's not the easiest thing to do, because yes. I was a young kid when this happens, and it kind of like craved some memories in my heart. So these are days that one can never forget.
Of course.
Having said that, I think what we're doing now, maybe for the first time with the administration of President Sisi, for the first time we are actually having a strategy about Sinai, because what we had in the past, and that's a rule in so many different things. I mean, if you have a vacuum, something is going to step in and fill that vacuum. So the administration of the President Sisi, I think for the first time, we are approaching Sinai in a slightly different way. Basically, Sinai is almost a third of the surface of Egypt, so it's a huge piece of land.
Yes.
And there are several axes that the project of developing Sinai have been developed. And the first axis, which is almost very, it's a no-brainer, but nobody has done it until President Sisi came and he started to do it, which is simply the connectivity. Sinai was not connected to Egypt, okay? We had one tunnel, and it was a good tunnel given the technologies and the systems available at that point in time.
Ahmed Hamdi tunnel.
Ahmed Hamdi
yes.
tunnel. But it wasn't really enough. And, you know, to be able to protect and interact with an important piece of land like Sinai, you need connectivity to the mainland of Egypt. And we had mega projects of connectivity, and we have about 6 tunnels, more than what we had before. So we have a very good connectivity with Sinai. Then we have, again, we saw in 2013, before the current administration comes to rule the country and manage it, we saw that there was a vacuum there. And again, what did this vacuum create? It was open. So you had terrorism that came out.
Yes.
You had a lot of illegal trading of agriculture, drugs and what have you. And that had to stop. So there was a major investment, and a lot of efforts were done by the Egyptian armed forces to almost, we could say almost like a second transformation to be able to control Sinai. And I think one of the very smart things that President Sisi has done, and many people have not really noticed this, we had signed a peace agreement, the one that's called several, but one, mostly the Camp David peace agreement was signed. And under this peace agreement, the control of the Egyptian armed forces and other forces, even the security forces, was very, very limited. Actually and practically, it was not enough in this agreement to control such a large piece of land.
Yes.
President Sisi diplomatically and in a very smooth way, which I think is a major achievement, has managed to actually regain the Egyptian control over the Sinai Peninsula. And then now once we had this control, the armed forces exerted major efforts to clean up the peninsula so it can be used. So that was the prerequisite to do anything, because if you have terrorism, you cannot have trade, you cannot have industry, you cannot have tourism, you cannot have anything.
Yes.
So we've achieved this extremely successfully, I must admit. And now we see development going on several dimensions and in different axes. The first axe that we see, and again, going back to the main strategy, is you cannot allow vacuum. Mm-hmm. If you allow vacuum, it's going to be filled probably in a way that you don't desire. So we see there was a lot of money invested or spent, but I'd rather use the word invested than spent. Almost, if I'm not mistaken, almost 600 billion Egyptian pounds spent in that period. And we see that there is a lot of agriculture. So that's a very important dimension. One, you're utilizing the lands that's available for agriculture, and you're helping the motherland with, the products that are needed there. And interestingly enough, one of the best types of olives and olive oil are actually coming from Sinai. So that's a major development. And if I'm not mistaken, Egypt, I think we are the largest producer of olive oil globally now, and I think partially because of the agriculture and the crops we're getting from Sinai. So that's a very important dimension. That's number one. Number two, industry. You have a very large land again, and you can build a lot of industries, especially industries that require large pieces of land, which are not really available or would be very expensive if you were to have them in the old part of the country. Then we have tourism. I personally, this is why, again, it's a very emotional thing when we talk about Sinai. I remember that was in makes me feel old, but it was about in 1981.
Yes.
We went in our midterm break with the school to Al Harish, and Al Harish at that point in time was only half with Egypt. We were in the process of regaining Sinai, and it was the end of the Egyptian border at Al Harish, and we had like a work camp and we constructed things. It was very tough, but the idea, the memories that I have, 40 years later now, the memories that, again, are engraved in our mind. This is a part of our land that we spend a lot of effort, we spend a lot of blood to regain it back, and there is no way we can let it go once more. Mm-hmm. And these memories stay with one forever, actually. I remember one of the best beaches on the Mediterranean in the north. Most people think of tourism in Sinai on the south and diving, which is brilliant and lovely, and definitely we need to develop it. But the beach on the north is absolutely gorgeous, and very few people. North Sinai, absolutely. Yes. When you have the palm beach, you have this nature only in Hawaii. When you have the palm trees going on the beach in the sand, and then in the crystal clear water, it's a beautiful beach. It's a huge opportunity. Mm-hmm. But again, if you have terrorism and we all know the history and we know what happened. No way you could sell this part of the country for tourism.
Yes.
So obviously we have a huge opportunity here. The other thing that we are working on, and there is this project that could be a threat to the Suez Canal, which is a parallel route to come from the Arabian Gulf through Saudi Arabia, through Jordan, through Israel, into the Mediterranean, and you'll be able to move goods and products from either the Arabian Gulf or Asia to the Mediterranean without. So hence Europe, without actually going through the Suez Canal.
Yes.
And this is an economic threat. It's not a secret, okay? So we have this very interesting project that the current administration of President Sisi is engaging on to create a rail road that actually would take you from the Aqaba Bay into the Mediterranean. So you could avoid going through 2 or 3 countries, so you actually would take it into that direction, save a lot of effort, save a lot of time, save a lot of energy consumed, and you will still be able to deliver the goods and products into the Mediterranean towards their final destination, probably in Europe.
Yes.
So the multiplicity of dimensions that are being used to develop Sinai, one, it is definitely the right strategy because, you know, if you leave it empty, all sorts of things that you don't really want will come up. And it has a lot of contribution to the wealth of the country, which are mostly needed. The mining as well, I forgot the part of the mining, because
Yes.
the mining is a very, very important dimension because Sinai has a lot of metal and raw materials which are extremely useful and very well needed and very pricely traded on the international market. So again, that's another dimension. So it's a huge push actually to the economy and the country. And it couldn't have been done without the sacrifices that and the very strong efforts that the Egyptian armed forces have made to make that very dear part of the country usable to us.
Doctor, you mentioned a couple of very important points that I would like to be asking you more about. You mentioned that it was a no-brainer by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to come in and see that we need more connectivity with the Sinai residents. How do you think that this has upgraded the living standards of the Sinai residents nowadays, economically?
Well, it's very simple. And we see the strategy not only in Sinai, we see the strategy all over the country. I mean, unless, you see, the new hot topic around management nowadays is all about supply chain, it's all about transportation. This is where everything is happening. If you cannot access Sinai, or Sinai cannot access the mainland, you're detached. You could not have, for example, a factory, because you will not be able to bring in your raw material and let out your final products. You will not be able to bring the workers. I mean, again, the tunnel of Ahmed Hamdi is really a very good start, but it is
limited,
too small
yes,
to be able to service the ambition that we have for a third of the surface of the country. So it's huge, and the connectivity. President Sisi is somebody who understands very well economics, and he understands very well logistics, which is critical. Whether military or even economically speaking, logistics are extremely important. And if you cannot reach out and they cannot reach you in, you're disconnected. And this was the reason why one of the first projects or first pillars were to get the connectivity through the new set of tunnels that we have. They are very expensive, by the way.
Yes.
But this is an investment. This is not a one-time expense. This is, you cannot allow. I mean, if we all remember the 1973 war, the key challenge was how to cross to get over there.
Yes.
You cannot have this challenge again. And we should never have this challenge again. And this is exactly what the strategy of President Sisi is doing nowadays. That, you know, with 6 tunnels, it's very difficult that Egypt will ever have this challenge again, inshallah.
Yes, Doctor, before going to the other report of the daily debate for tonight, you've mentioned the key word here, which is the expenses that we have made over the past, specifically 9 years under the tenure of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi for Sinai. We have seen over the past week the conference of A Story of a Nation, which took place over 3 days, where the Prime Minister, the ministers, they came out and they said that we have done so and so, and we have spent this and that in Sinai and all over Egypt under the tenure of President al-Sisi in the past 9 years. President al-Sisi said in one of the statements, one of the more important statements, that we have had expenses that reached 40 or 50 billion dollars to be pumped or have been pumped into Sinai, and he said that those expenses could have been even multiplied if we delayed those projects and the mega national projects that were held or constructed in Egypt in general and more specifically in Sinai. How do you see the importance of the time frame, the speed of which the mega projects were implemented as well?
Thank you very much for bringing up this question, because before we get into the speed, there is a comment that I hear from some of the voices around. They say that, you know, these sorts of projects do not have a return on investment.
Yes.
And sometimes whoever makes such a statement are actually people who are specialized in management and even finance sometimes. And to be honest with you, I get very saddened and let alone shocked. There is a section that many of these gentlemen, seems, and ladies might have missed out in their studies. There is something in management called public profit.
Yes.
Public profit is not, by definition, a concept where you have a direct return, a quantifiable return on investment, because the ROI gets calculated, return on investment gets calculated when you have a project to with a certain, you know, you make a certain investment in a machine, say, that produces something, and then you sell, so you see how much you're going to make out of what you're selling, and that becomes more or less your return on investment with a different other set of techniques.
Yes.
But this is not the point. The point is, you couldn't have had a factory if you did not have a road that leads to this factory. You want to isolate that road and work out the return on investment? That does not exist in management. You couldn't have had you know, the zone of industrial zone of Suez Canal. We have the Russian, we have now the Chinese are coming to be able to escape a little bit of the quota that they have on their production and use Egypt as a platform for that. And if you had not prepared the ground, if you had not made this setup, they couldn't have came. So there is a prerequisite for you to qualify. If you don't have an internet, if you don't have phones, people forget, you know, 40 years ago, before even the mobile phones, to be able to make a phone call in Egypt, it was a pain in the neck. Okay, people forget. To have this, that costs money. And sometimes, unfortunately, in foreign currency, because quite often we don't have the local requirements or the technology, and you have to import it.
Yes.
So again, this is a prerequisite to be able to build what you call the superstructure, which step number 2, that comes on top of the base that you create. So I get very surprised when people say, like, the invested or we spend too much money. Going back to your initial question of, we all see, and that's not only in Egypt, by the way, that's a global phenomena, unseen or extremely high level of inflations worldwide. I'm not talking only on Egypt. You know, in the US, the interest rate that we see in the US are, whether positive or negative interest rates, are unheard of for decades. You know, 7 and 9% on US dollar. I mean, that's unheard of. You should talk to anybody in the US about his mortgage, and people are actually suffering.
Yes.
So if we had done this investment today, it would have costed quite a bit, much more than the time that the president took the right decision with his foresight to do it.
Yes, Doctor, we'll be turning to the other report of the daily debate for tonight, which comes from the Sinai Peninsula as well, and the development of it, as the government has pledged to be pumping 17 billion Egyptian pounds into Sinai to be implementing 360 developmental projects in the Sinai Peninsula for the fiscal year 2022-2023. We'll be having more details in the upcoming reports. Stay tuned.
Minister of Planning and Economic Development has issued a report on the features of the Citizens Investment Plan for North Sinai and South Sinai for 2022-2023. Halal Said, Minister of Planning and Economic Development, said Sustainable Development Plan for the fiscal year 2022-2023 pays special attention to policies and programs aimed at achieving convergence in living standards and incomes between regions by addressing existing development gaps and advancing development efforts in accordance with the components, characteristics, and priorities of each region. In this regard, the efforts of development were aimed at achieving integrated rural development to narrow the income gap and limit migration flows to urban areas, and to give high priority to the development of Sinai Peninsula and the governorates of Upper Egypt within the framework of a coherent and integrated development program. In addition to giving a strong development impetus to the promising areas in governorates to take advantage of existing opportunities and provide more job opportunities for young people. She explained that these directions come in agreement with the Sustainable Development Strategy within the framework of Egypt's Vision 2030 and the consolidation of principles of human rights in enjoying a decent life on the basis of justice and in a sustainable way. She stressed that community participation is the basic guarantee for the localization of sustainable development goals at the local level, achieving balanced regional development and bridging development gaps between different governorates in line with Egypt's Vision 2030 and the seventh goal of the Global Sustainable Development Goals partnerships to achieve the goals. Regarding North Sinai, El Said explained that the number of development projects in the governorate reaches 152 projects, and the value of public investments directed to the governorate of 2022-2023 plan amounts to 7.9 billion Egyptian pounds, an increase of 27.4% over the 2021-2022 plan. With regard to the governorate of South Sinai, the number of development projects in the governorate reaches 208 projects, and the value of public investments directed to the governorate amounts to 9.2 billion Egyptian pounds, an increase of 124% over the 2021-2022 plan. With regard to the sectoral distribution of targeted public investments in North Sinai according to 2022-2023 plan, Said indicated that investments amounting to 2.5 billion Egyptian pounds are directed to the transport sector at a rate of 32% and 2.3 billion Egyptian pounds or 29% to the housing sector. Local development sector investments amount to 1.1 billion Egyptian pounds or 14%. The water resources and irrigation sector amounted to 1.1 billion Egyptian pounds or 14%. And the higher education and scientific research sector amounted to 225.4 million Egyptian pounds or 3%. On the sectoral distribution of targeted public investments in South Sinai in 2022-2023 plan, the report indicated that investments amounting to 2.5 billion Egyptian pounds were directed to the local development sector at a rate of 27%, followed by housing sector at a value of 2 billion Egyptian pounds at a rate of 22%. And related to higher education and scientific research at a rate of 1.9 billion Egyptian pounds at a rate of 20%, then health 593.8 million Egyptian pounds or 7%, then the agricultural sector with investments amounting to 509.6 million Egyptian pounds or 5%. Other sectors in the governorate have investments worth 1.7 billion Egyptian pounds or 19%.
Welcome back. You're still watching the daily debate. Dr. Ahmed Laithi, Nasef, finally, how would you see in conclusion the opportunities for the future of Sinai in terms of the geographical and the demographical location and the opportunities and benefits that are the characteristics of the Sinai Peninsula?
Well, in conclusion, Sinai is a very dear part of our country. For the first time in decades, we have an administration today that is doing the right thing. And I think really the sky is the limit. This is a very rich part of the country. If well utilized, it can be very resourceful. And we should have all the hope and the aspiration that Sinai will play a major positive role in the economy of Egypt in the near future.
Yes, Dr. Ahmed Laithi, Nasef, the economics and the management consultant. Thank you very much for being with us tonight on the Daily Debate. Anytime. And this brings us to the end of the Daily Debate for tonight. In the episode, we have celebrated, of course, the 50th anniversary of the 1973 October War victory against Israel and the benefits of regaining Sinai over the past 50 years and more specifically over the past 9 years under the tenure of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, the war of development and prosperity for the citizens and the residents of the Sinai Peninsula. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll be seeing you next week.